Julian Assange is feeling exposed, and perhaps Benedict Cumberbatch overexposed? You're watching Beyond the Trailers review of The Fifth Estate.
If we had someone like you, the Berlin Wall would have come down years before.
We're on the verge of a major international crisis.
If you want to do this, you have to do it now.
You all have 5 seconds.
What's going on?
5 seconds on.
That's just you and your ego and the lies you tell to get whatever you want.
This is information the world needs to know.
We need to crush these guys.
It's life. Times is life.
Both Jeremy Renner and Joel Kinnaman were considered for the lead role of Julian Assange, but ultimately it went to Benedict Cumberbatch, becoming the crown jewel of the lineup of films introducing him to American audiences this year. Now, of course, Star Trek Into Darkness, 12 Years a Slave, August Osage County, and The Hobbit, The Desolation of Smaug are all high-profile films. But it's The Fifth Estate, which Cumberbatch's team is hoping can help him end this banner year with some awards nominations. Heck, he's already got one. He's been named British Artist of the Year by the Britannia Awards, presented by BAFTA's Los Angeles branch. Cumberbatch will receive the award on November 9th, just as award season begins to really heat up, with tons of voters in the audience and reading the industry headlines the next day. However, he might have an even greater honor than a Golden Globe or an Oscar already locked down as well, and that's a coveted role in his Star Trek director Star Wars sequels. Hey, can you blame J.J. Abrams for wanting his very own Alec Guinness equivalent? And this one wants to be there. But while Cumberbatch is on a hot streak, overexposure be damned, Julian Assange is not happy. He has been publicly crusading against the Fifth Estate, using words like attack, irresponsible, and debauched. Interestingly, though, Assange knows not to attack the beloved Cumberbatch, calling the actor merely well-intentioned. But perhaps the smartest thing Assange could have done was keep quiet and let the press's mediocre reviews bury the film. Is The Fifth Estate an expose of the man who changed the news business forever, or a soapy hatchet job from the director of the Twilight Saga Breaking Dawn, Parts 1 and 2? That very last part is true, but Bill Condon did also direct Gods and Monsters and Dreamgirls. And boy, Daniel Bruhl sure has some bad luck. First Rush crashes and burns at the box office, and now he's co-starring in a film that's biggest buzz is for an opening credit sequence detailing the history of delivering the news, which took over a year to make. Although, that does sound like something I'd like to see. The opening credit sequence is pretty nifty, but I just wish it were in front of a better movie. The Fifth Estate has a lot of problems. The biggest, I think, is that it's hard to tell a story where most of your audience knows all the key turning points already. Not only is it hard to create suspense, but when you're trying to tell the story, because we know what happens later on, questions come up at earlier points that I feel need to be addressed in a better way than they were here, because it just became frustrating. I don't want to give too much away, but there are two instances where I think this comes into play. The first is that they spend a huge amount of time in this movie talking about that the big selling point of WikiLeaks is that it can protect its sources' identities. You know, if you leak classified documents, WikiLeaks can protect you. And immediately when they say this, at least I did, and I think a number of people would as well, I thought of Bradley Manning. And I'm like, well, you didn't protect him. He's actually in jail right now. And they do address that, but not until 2/3 into the movie, much later than when the whole idea of protecting a source's identity is brought up. And then it's not touched on very much. So it just kind of falls by the wayside. The same thing is there's a certain point when Assange is becoming, more dangerous with his information leaks. Someone tells him that, they're going to try and use a smear campaign against you. And I immediately thought the rape allegations, that some people feel are kind of trumped up. But never brought up. And in that case, it's even just like an afterthought in like some text after the movie. There's a little bit of a scene with Julian Assange's character, the Julian Assange character, not even really factored in at all. And I feel that if you ask most people today on the street about Julian Assange, those rape charges are one of the first things they would think of. So to not address it, either as a smear campaign or a legitimate, thing that he did, I think is not telling the full story. The other thing is that they try and dramatize the digital world that Julian Assange and his WikiLeaks co-workers inhabit. And the way they do that is they create kind of like this fake office on a beach, and they spend a lot of time there to try and, as I said, give dramatic weight to some of those scenes instead of just having people in chat rooms. But I much would have preferred they spend that time explaining to me the detailed programming that was created for WikiLeaks to exist. For instance, we spend a huge amount of time in the movie looking at this very particular screen or computer program that has lots of different windows in it, and I would have loved to have take 5 minutes to walk us through the submission process of a document to WikiLeaks and, what all those different windows meant. Because I was spending so much time looking at it, I would have loved to know what I was looking at. And perhaps the director and the producers felt that that would bore audiences, but Hollywood needs to stop intellectually underestimating its audiences, because I think people would have liked to know that. Just like I had a problem in Runner Runner when the world of gambling wasn't better explained. Also, the film kind of reads like a WikiLeaks, entry. It just bears all the facts but offers no analysis. And I thought there was some very interesting analysis to offer. For instance, just, without giving it too much thought, two things that occurred to me was that, Assange was raised in a cult, and based on this movie, he kind of becomes almost like a cult leader himself. And also, the powers that be succeed in locking him away in a prison, basically, because as we all know, he's under house arrest, self-imposed house arrest at the Ecuadorian embassy in London for fear of being arrested for those rape charges. So, he was kind of locked away, and that's not even addressed, really. So that stuff was all a problem. And also, the movie has a lot of discussion about how, the powers that be are always corrupt. This is an ongoing problem. But I thought they should have addressed the other side of the coin, where revolutionaries always tend to be really naive and underestimate the powers that be, which was the case here. So I really, the movie I think I would call pseudo-intellectual. I was going to say it was like a TV movie, but I think Jobs was a much better biography than this. Talking about how looking at a real life person who was very controversial and trying to figure them out. I thought Jobs was a better film. This film just was frustrating, and it's sad for me to say that because I'm such a big Benedict Cumberbatch fan, and I'm such a Daniel Bruhl fan. And by the way, it was interesting to see him play off Benedict Cumberbatch because Cumberbatch was very much kind of playing the Niki Lauda part. So, and I think Bruhl did a better job with his Lauda than Cumberbatch does with his Assange. But that's my thoughts on the film. I actually would not recommend you see it because it's just, not only because of its flaws, but it's really just too long. It's like almost, I think, a little over 2 hours, and you just get no return, either entertainment-wise or on an intellectual level. So I just don't think it's a good use of anybody's time, even on demand. All right, so that's my thoughts on The Fifth Estate. If you've seen the film, be sure to share your thoughts down below, and you can check out these other videos right now.